You ever have that moment, you crack your phone screen, you take it in, and they tell you it's either impossible to fix or it's going to cost pretty much the same as a new one. It is so frustrating, right? Well, what if I told you that exact same problem, that inability to fix something you own, was playing out with a nation's most critical defense hardware? Yeah, let's get into it. It sounds like the setup to a joke, doesn't it? One fits in your pocket, the other is a literal marvel of engineering that can break the sound barrier. But they share this hidden, crucial weakness, a growing intentional restriction on who is actually allowed to repair them. And that shared problem, believe it or not, has massive consequences for every single one of us.
So let's be clear on what we're talking about here. The right to repair? It's this really fundamental idea. It's all about whether you can get your hands on the manuals, the special tools, and the real parts to fix the things you've paid for. It's a principle that affects everything from your coffee maker to a battle tank.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to start small. We have to start with something familiar, because this isn't some far-off, abstract debate happening in government halls. It's a problem that literally starts with the devices we hold in our hands every single day.
You know, for most of human history, when you bought something, it was yours. End of story. You could open it up, you could tinker with it, you could fix it, but our modern world with all its smart, digitally connected gadgets has completely flipped that script. Now, manufacturers use unique parts and lockdown software to basically control the entire repair process, chipping away at what ownership has always meant.
And this is where the story blows up into something much, much bigger. The very same logic that makes it a headache to fix your phone is now being used on equipment where the stakes aren't just an inconvenience, but a farmer's entire livelihood, or even a country's ability to defend itself.
You can just see the ladder of escalation here. It starts with your device breaking. That's annoying. Then it moves to a farmer whose brand new tractor gets bricked by a software error right in the middle of a harvest. That's a threat to their business, to their family. But when that same kind of restriction grounds a fleet of helicopters or docks a warship, it becomes a direct threat to national security.
So the big question is why? Why on earth would a multi-million-dollar piece of military hardware be made intentionally hard to fix? Well, the answer is that these incredibly complex systems are often locked down by their very design, creating a powerful and profitable dependency on the original company that built them.
And it's not just one thing. It's a whole toolbox of tactics. You've got proprietary hardware, special screws and custom chips that you can't get anywhere else. You've got embedded software that demands a secret code just to tell you what's wrong. And then there's the really sneaky one, planned obsolescence. That's designing something to fail or become unsupported after a few years, forcing you into a crazy expensive upgrade you don't even need.
But this is the absolute kicker. The physical parts of a machine could be perfectly fine, totally repairable. But a little piece of code, a digital lock on the software, can refuse to accept a new part, making the entire thing inoperable. The hardware is ready to go, but the software says nope, and your machine becomes a very, very expensive paperweight.
Now, the companies will often say, oh, we do this for security reasons. But a lot of experts push back on that, calling it security by obscurity. That's the flimsy idea that something is safe just because you keep its design a secret. But the counter-argument is powerful. Real, true security comes from systems that are tough, robust, and can be inspected by trusted experts. Hiding a flaw doesn't make a system safer.
Okay, so we've got a handle on the how. We see the locks and the barriers, but what does this actually mean in the real world? This is where the right to repair stops being a technical problem and becomes a huge strategic one.
Let's just put the two models side by side. In one corner, you've got the OEM-controlled model. That's where only the original equipment manufacturer can do the repairs. The result? Long, unpredictable downtimes, super high costs because there's no competition, and a supply chain that's often fragile and dependent on other countries. Now look at the other side, a right-to-repair model. Here you get agile, fast maintenance, lower costs because different companies can compete for the work, and a much tougher, more diverse supply chain.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. The number one impact is on something called operational readiness. It's just military jargon for, is our gear actually ready to go when we desperately need it? And if a fighter jet is stuck on the tarmac for weeks waiting for a single proprietary part, or for one technician to be flown in from halfway across the world, the answer is a flat no. That's a direct blow to a nation's ability to respond to a crisis.
And this is why it's such a big deal. The benefits of changing course are so clear. You enhance readiness, which makes the military more effective.
You reduce costs, which is great for taxpayers, and you boost your own domestic industry, creating high-skilled jobs right at home. It's a win-win-win.
All of this, every single point, builds to one ultimate question. Because when you strip everything else away, this isn't really about nuts and bolts or profit margins. It's about a much bigger idea. Who is actually in control of a nation's power to defend itself?
And that brings us to this key concept, strategic autonomy. It's a fancy term for a simple, powerful idea, a nation's ability to act in its own best interest, to make its own choices on the world stage, without needing to ask for permission from anyone else. And being able to maintain your own defense equipment is a massive part of that.
Just think about it for a second. If a country's military hardware depends on a foreign company to keep it running, the home government of that company suddenly has incredible power. They could delay parts, withhold software updates, or deny technicians for purely political reasons, effectively holding a veto over another nation's security decisions.
The source material we looked at uses this incredibly stark phrase to describe what's at stake. It calls it digital and logistical enslavement. That's what happens when a nation becomes so dependent on an outside company for the very functioning of its military that it's no longer truly in command of its own systems.
And that right there is the core thesis of this entire explainer. In our high-tech world, the ability to repair isn't just a consumer rights issue anymore. When it comes to the military, it becomes an absolutely fundamental pillar of national sovereignty. It's about self-reliance. It's about being in control of your own destiny.
So we'll leave you with this one question, which really puts the whole thing in a nutshell. What started with the simple frustration of a broken phone has led us all the way here. If a nation cannot by itself fix the very tools it relies on for its own defense, does it truly control them at all? It's a heavy question, and one that governments and citizens all over the world are now being forced to answer.